It happened in the early hours of last Wednesday in two suburbs east and southwest of Damascus. And afterwards, some 3,600 casualties were rushed to three hospitals. 355 of them have reportedly died. Those figures are from Médecins Sans Frontières, an independent charity working locally. MSF has talked of mass exposure to a chemical agent, but it couldn't say which chemical agent or which side had used it. This morning, these members of the Free Syrian Army filmed this message for visiting UN inspectors. They claim that only the Assad regime had the chemicals for such a crime, and they point out that it was only rebel-held areas which were attacked. Those UN inspectors are now under pressure to give their own verdict. Their mission east of Damascus today was at breakneck speed, a round trip of no more than 4 hours, after they were fired upon on Monday. Rebel groups filmed them collecting soil samples. The rebels and the Americans fear the regime is deliberately frustrating the UN so it can't finish its work. That's playing for time, says Washington, which says last week's attack is evidence enough. The UN team looked for its own evidence at Zamalka Hospital, taking blood samples from victims of last week's attack. The man on the right is a UN inspector. We have taken blood samples and urine and hair, he tells a local doctor. Have you taken samples from the corpses, he is asked. No, we don't need to look at the dead, the UN man says, as you have survivors here. We don't know if the Syrian regime will allow these inspectors to work safely, or whether the Americans will wait. But Syrian officials today delivered what they said was their own evidence to the UN's hotel.
Armed terrorist groups used sarin gas in all these sites, and we repeat that the terrorist groups are the ones who used them, with American, British and French support. This support should stop.
As for President Assad, well, he was last seen on August the 8th. This video apparently aired to show that he was still alive after reports that rebels had attacked his convoy earlier in the day. Maybe his regime thought it could get away with a chemical attack as it had in the past. Maybe it hit the wrong target. Maybe it was a gung-ho commander. Maybe it was the wrong dose. Whatever the truth of what happened here, US and Israeli press reports say Washington has transcripts of panicked phone calls between a senior Syrian Defense Ministry official and the leader of a chemical weapons unit. Those conversations were recorded last Wednesday. The Americans say the evidence has convinced them the regime was involved. But Syria's UN ambassador is now calling on the UN to investigate 3 alleged chemical attacks he says rebels carried out last week.
Dozens of Syrian soldiers are currently treated in the Syrian hospitals due to this use of chemical agents by the terrorist armed groups.
Maybe the regime is trying to divert attention away from this horrific incident and delay. But its opponents now stand accused of rushing things because UN inspectors haven't finished their work and because the Americans haven't yet published what they say they know.